This is Reddit Storytell time.
Our 10th anniversary was supposed to be a night to remember, and in a way, it was just not for the reasons I'd imagined. I had spent weeks planning the perfect evening, a high-end restaurant, the same place. We had our first fancy date when we were just young and in love. I had written her a heartfelt letter, something deeply personal, something that captured 10 years of our journey together, the struggles, the victories, the love that I thought we had built. I sat at our reserve table waiting for her, feeling the kind of excitement that had been missing for a while. I thought maybe this night could rekindle what had been lost over the years. I didn't want to admit it, but deep down, I knew something had been off for months. The cold responses, the sudden distance, the hushed phone calls she claimed were just work. But I had pushed those thoughts away. After all, this was our night. Then I heard her voice not in the way I'd expected, Ed. She was supposed to be walking toward me, smiling, excited to celebrate a decade together instead. I heard her laughing, a type of laugh I hadn't heard in a long time. Playful, flirty. She wasn't talking to me. I turned my head slightly, my heart already sinking, as I spotted her just a few tables away, leaning in close to a man I'd never seen before. I saw her touch his arm lightly, her eyes locked onto his like he was the only person in the world. I didn't exist in that moment. I should have walked up, should have confronted her right then and there, but something inside me told me to wait, to observe, to let this play out, and see exactly how far she would go, and she didn't disappoint. She giggled at something he said, tilting her head in that way. She used to do with me. Then I heard her say it, the kind of thing a wife never should say to a man who isn't her husband. I wish I had met you 10 years ago. My blood turned cold. I don't remember breathing. I don't even remember blinking. But I do remember reaching into my pocket, feeling the edges of the envelope. The letter I had poured my heart into the letter I had written for a woman who at this very moment was fantasizing about a life without me. I stood up, my chair scraped against the floor, loud enough to make a few heads turn, but not hers. She was too wrapped up in her conversation, in her little fantasy. I walked over my steps, deliberate. My heart beat calm, too calm. She still didn't notice me, not until I was right beside her. When she finally looked up, her face went pale. Babe. I gently placed the envelope on the table in front of her happy anniversary. I said, my voice steady, and then I turned and walked out. I didn't look back, but I knew without a doubt this was only the beginning. I walked out of the restaurant without a second glance, but my mind was spinning like a hurricane. Every step I took away from that table felt surreal, like I was moving through some kind of slow-motion nightmare. The city lights blurred in my vision, the sounds of the bustling street muffled under the weight of what had just happened. My wife, the woman I had loved for 10 years, the woman I had built a life with, was sitting at a table flirting with another man while I waited to celebrate our anniversary, and the way she had looked at him, the way she laughed, it wasn't just casual banter. That was desire, that was longing, that was the spark she hadn't given me in years, and I had just left her sitting there with a letter in front of her. I had no idea what she would do with it, if she'd even bother to open it, or if she'd brush it aside and continue her night with him, but I didn't care. At least that's what I kept telling myself as I walked further and further away from the restaurant. I needed air, I needed space, but most of all, I needed answers. I wasn't sure where I was going. My feet moved on autopilot, leading me through the city, past familiar streets that now felt foreign. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I already knew who it was before I even looked her. I let it ring, and then it rang again and again. By the fourth call, I exhaled sharply and finally picked up what I said flatly, my voice devoid of any emotion. Where are you? What the hell was that? She snapped, her voice laced with irritation rather than guilt. I let out a bitter laugh. Wow, no apology. No, I'm sorry, babe, it's not what it looked like. There was silence on the other end, and then she said the worst thing she could have said in that moment, you're overreacting. I stopped walking, gripping my phone so tightly I thought I might crush it. Overreacting, I repeated slowly. I caught my wife flirting with another man on our anniversary, and I'm the one overreacting. She scoffed. Scoffed like I was some kind of child throwing a tantrum over spilled milk. It was just a conversation, she said. I ran into an old friend. We were catching up. It was harmless. Harmless, I repeated, shaking my head in disbelief. You told him you wished you met him 10 years ago. You touched his arm. You laugh like you were single. More silent. Then a sigh. I was just joking around. She muttered, it didn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything. The words repeated in my head like an echo in an empty cave. Leeton, talk about this at home. She said, come, back in. I ended the call. I wasn't going home, not yet. I stared at my phone for a long moment after hanging up. The screen dimmed, reflecting my own blank expression back at me. The city hummed around me, cars honking, people laughing, the world moving on as if nothing had happened. But for me, everything had just cracked apart. I shoved my phone back into my pocket and kept walking. I wasn't sure where I was headed home. No, I couldn't go back there. Not yet, a bar maybe, but I wasn't in the mood to drown my anger in alcohol. I needed to think, to process, to understand how the woman I thought I knew had just proven to me that I had been living a lie, the way she dismissed me on the phone, the way she acted like I was making a scene over nothing it was eating at me. That wasn't guilt. That wasn't regret. That was indifference. She hadn't even sounded surprised that I'd caught her like it was just a minor inconvenience, an argument she would smooth over with some excuse and a forced smile that thought made me stop walking. Had she done this before? Had there been other nights, other men, other moments where she flirted and played the role of the fun, desirable woman? While I sat at home believing she was mine, and mine alone, I felt sick. I found a bench near the edge of a park and sat down, resting my elbows on my knees. A couple walked past me, holding hands, whispering and giggling, wrapped in their own little world. I looked away. How many times had my wife and I been like that? How many times had I believed we were still that couple? Even as the distance between us grew, my phone buzzed again, another call from her, then a text, come home. We need to talk. I stared at the words for a long time. Talk now, she wanted to talk. I thought about ignoring it, but something in me wanted to hear what she had to say, not because I believed she had a good explanation, but because I wanted to see if she would finally be honest. So I stood up, took a deep breath, and started walking home. By the time I got there, the apartment was dark, except for the warm glow of the lamp in the living room. She was sitting on the couch, her phone in her hands, her legs curled up beneath her. The moment I stepped inside, she looked up, her eyes scanning my face, searching for something, anger, sadness, maybe even weakness. I didn't give her any of it. You finally decided to come back, she said. Setting her phone aside, her tone was calm, casual, like I'd just stepped out to get milk and not walked out on our anniversary dinner. I shut the door behind me and leaned against it. Start talking. She sighed, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Look, I don't know what you think you saw, but don't. My voice came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. Don't try to gaslight me. I saw everything, her lips pressed into a thin line. It wasn't what you think, really, because it sure looked like you were. Enjoying yourself, laughing, flirting, touching him. I let out a cold laugh and saying you wished you met him 10 years ago on our anniversary. She didn't have an immediate response to that for the first time since I had walked in. Something flickered across her face. Not guilt, not shame, annoyance. You're making a big deal out of nothing, she muttered. I was just having fun. It didn't mean anything. There it was again, those words, it didn't mean anything. I exhaled through my nose, forcing myself to stay calm. Did you read my letter? She blinked, caught off guard by the sudden change in conversation. What, the letter I gave you at the restaurant? Did you read it? Her eyes darted away. That was all the answer I needed. I felt something in my chest tighten, then snap. I had poured my heart into that letter. I had relived every beautiful moment we had shared, reminding her of the love we had built, the struggles we had overcome. I had written about my dreams for our future, how I wanted to grow old with her, how I wanted us to find our way back to each other after the rough patches we had been through, and she hadn't even bothered to read it. I swallowed hard, nodding to myself. Right, she sighed, rubbing her forehead. Look, can we just move past this? It was a stupid moment. It didn't mean anything. You're my husband. You're the one I chose. Chose, I repeated, tilting my head like I'm some second-place prize. That's not what I meant. Then what do you and mean? She didn't answer. I felt my pulse pounding in my ears. The air between us was thick, suffocating every second that passed, without her saying the words I needed to hear, without her apologizing, without her showing an ounce of regret, was another nail in the coffin of whatever was left of our marriage. I turned toward the hallway. Where are you going? She asked to bed. She frowned. We not done talking. Yeah, I said, without looking back. We are. I didn't sleep. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind playing every moment of the evening on an endless loop, the way she had laughed with him, the way she had touched his arm, the way she had dismissed me scoffing like I was overreacting, like I was some jealous fool making a scene over nothing. But the worst part, she hadn't even read my letter. That hurt more than anything, more than the flirting, more than her excuses, more than the indiffer in her voice. I had spent weeks writing that letter, pouring my heart onto the pages, reliving every memory, every millstone, every reason why I had fallen in love with her in the first place. I thought, maybe, just maybe, if she read it, she would remember too, but she never even opened it. By the time the sun crept through the blinds, I felt hollow, the kind of empty that doesn't go away no matter how much you try to distract yourself. She was already up by the time I left the bedroom. I heard the sound of the coffee machine humming, smelled the faint scent of toast for a brief moment. It felt like any other morning, but as soon as I stepped into the kitchen, she turned her eyes cautious. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about what I might do. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. So what's the plan? Are we just pretending last night didn't happen? She sighed, placing her mug on the counter a little too hard. I don't know what you want from me. I let out a sharp laugh. You don't know what I want. I shook my head. I want the truth. I want you to stop pretending like I didn't catch you flirting with another guy on our anniversary. I want you to stop acting like I imagined the whole thing. Her jaw tightened. It wasn't what you think there. It was, again, the same tired excuse. I pushed off the counter, stepping closer. Then tell me, what was it? She looked away, not out of guilt, but because she was annoyed, like I was an inconvenience, a problem that she just wanted to go away. I told you, she muttered. It was just a conversation. I let that hang in the air for a moment, let her sit in her own words. Then I pulled out my phone, tapped a few times, and turned the screen toward her. It was a video I had recorded it the moment I saw her with him, the moment I heard her say the words that shattered whatever trust one had left. I had pulled out my phone and hit record, just a short clip. Her laughing, touching his arm, leaning in way too close, and then clear as day. Her voice saying, I wish I had met you 10 years ago. Her eyes widened as the words played from the speaker. I watched her reaction, carefully, shock, then anger, but not at herself, at me. You recorded me, she hissed, her voice sharp with accusation. Yeah, I said, my voice steady because I knew you'd lie. She scoffed, throwing her hands up. This is insane. You're spying on me now. What, are you going to start following me around, checking my phone, tracking my location? I stared at her. She was deflecting. She wasn't upset that I caught her. She was upset that she couldn't deny it anymore. I let out a slow breath, my hands tightening into fists at my sides. You know what? Forget it. You don't respect me enough to be honest, so I'm done trying. I turned and walked out of the kitchen, grabbing my keys from the table near the door. Where are you going? She called after me. I didn't answer. I just walked out, and this time, I didn't plan on coming back. I walked out of the apartment, letting the door shut behind me with a finality that sent a chill down my spine. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I needed to get away from her lies, her indifference, the way she had twisted everything to make herself the victim instead of the person who had betrayed our marriage. I got into my car and just drove, no destination in mind, no plan, just the open road and the weight in my chest that kept growing, heavier, with every passing mile. At some point, I found myself parked outside an old friend's house, someone I hadn't seen in a long time, but who had always been there for me when things got rough. I sat there for a minute debating whether or not to knock, but before I could decide, my phone started ringing again. I let it ring. Then came the text. Where are you? We need to talk. You can't just run away. Every time we have an argument. I clenched my jaw every time we have an argument. This wasn't a stupid fight about dishes or forgetting to take the trash out. This was betrayal. Then one final message came through. If you walk away from this, don't bother coming back. I stared at the words, feeling something inside me shift. It was a challenge, a test, and for the first time in a long time, I realized I didn't care to pass it. I stepped out of the car, walked up to my friend's door, and knocked. The door opened a few seconds later, and there he was. Mike, one of the few people I still trusted, his brow furrowed as he took one look at me. Damn, man, he said, you look like hell. I let out a dry laugh. Yeah, that about sums it up. He stepped aside. Come in, tell me what's going on. I walked inside the warmth of his place, instantly making me realize just how cold I had been feeling. He led me to the couch, grabbed 2 beers from the fridge, and sat down across from me. So he said, handing me one talk. I took a deep breath, then let it all spill out everything. The restaurant, the way she laughed with that guy, the words she said, the way she dismissed me, lied to my face, acted like I was the problem, the way she still hadn't apologized, still hadn't shown an ounce of remorse. By the time I was done, Mike was shaking his head. Damn, he muttered. I always had a bad feeling about her that caught me off guard. He hesitated for a second, then sighed. Look, man, I never said anything because I didn't have proof and I didn't want to mess with your marriage, but I've seen her out before with other guys laughing, flirting, acting single. Nothing I could say for sure was cheating, but it never sat right with me. My stomach dropped. How long, I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mike exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. I don't know, a year, maybe longer, a year, maybe longer. I leaned back, my mind reeling all this time, all those nights she came home late the sudden. Girls trips the distance, I'd been a fool. Mike watched me carefully. What are you going to do? I didn't answer right away because for the first time since this whole thing started, I wasn't sure I'd walked out tonight thinking I just needed space, thinking we could maybe fix this, if she just told the truth. But now I wasn't sure I even wanted to. I sat there gripping the beer bottle in my hand, staring at nothing. My mind was racing, replaying every memory of the past year, trying to fit the pieces together. How many times had she done this? How many nights had I sat at home trusting her while she was out playing the part of a single woman? Mike stayed quiet, letting me process it all. He had always been that kind of friend, the type who didn't push, didn't try to fill the silence. With empty words, just sat with you in it. I finally spoke. I feel like an idiot. He let out a breath. Man, don't do that. She played. You didn't do anything wrong. I shook my head. I should have seen it. I should have known you saw it tonight. Too late. That's what I wanted to say. But the words felt useless. I looked at my phone again. She had stopped texting good. I wasn't ready to deal with her. Not yet. Mike leaned back in his chair, studying me. So what's next? You going back to her? I let out a sharp laugh. No hell, no divorce. That word hit me like a punch to the gut. Divorce. A part of me had been avoiding it, avoiding even thinking it. But what was left? What was there to fix? She wasn't sorry. She wasn't remorseful. She wasn't even scared of losing me. She had told me point blank, if you walk away from this, don't bother coming back. She thought she had control. She thought I would. Fold. I exhaled slowly. Yeah, I think so. Mike nodded. Good. I frowned at him. You seem a little too happy about that. He took a sip of his beer. I just think you deserve better, man. I've thought that for a long time. I let that sit between us. It wasn't an easy thing to accept that the person you had built a life with, the person you had loved, wasn't worthy of it, that your friends had seen it long before you did. I finished my beer, set it down, and ran a hand over my face. I need a plan. Mike smirked. I can help with that. I raised a brow. Well, you got a lawyer in your back pocket. He shrugged. No, but I know a guy, and trust me, he's ruthless. I hesitated. I don't want this to get messy. Mike scoffed. It's already messy. The only question is if you walk away with your dignity intact or if you let her screw you over one last time. I sighed. He wasn't wrong. I peepled out my phone, and for the first time that night, I took the lead. I wasn't going to wait for her to dictate what happened next. I wasn't going to sit around hoping for an apology that would never come. I typed out a message. I'll be by tomorrow to get my stuff after that. We're done. I hit SN, then I turned off my phone. No more calls. No more excuses. No more pretending I was done. The night felt heavier now, but for the first time in a long time, I felt something close to clarity. The moment I turned my phone off, it was like cutting a cord, severing the invisible chain that had kept me bound to a woman who didn't deserve my love, my trust, or my patience. Mike watched me carefully, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded. Good. Now you're thinking straight. I exhaled, slowly letting the tension in my shoulders ease, but I knew the hardest part was yet to come. I had made the decision, but now I had to follow through. Leaving the apartment, the shared life, the memories, I didn't want to give her the chance to manipulate me, to twist my words to make me doubt myself. I needed to be quick, efficient, and gone before she had a chance to sink her claws in again. Mike seemed to read my thoughts because he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. You want back up tomorrow? I blinked what he smirked. You think she's just going to let you walk? Walk out? Come on, man. You need someone there to keep you from doing something stupid, or to keep her from pulling some emotional blackmail crap. I thought about it. It wasn't a bad idea. She had already shown me that she wasn't the kind of woman who would take responsibility for her actions. She would argue, she would twist the truth. She would probably even cry. Make it seem like I was abandoning her, play the victim, and I couldn't afford to let her get inside my head. I sighed. Yeah, I'd appreciate that. Mike grinned. Then it settled. I'll pick you up in the morning. I nodded, feeling something close to relief. We spent the rest of the night talking about anything but her. Mike made sure of that, keeping the conversation light, distracting me, reminding me that there was life outside of the disaster that was my marriage by the time. I crashed on his couch. Exhaustion finally hit me like a freight train. For the first time in months, I actually slept the next morning. We drove to the apartment together. I felt the weight return as we pulled up outside the building, but I forced myself to push through it. This wasn't a negotiation. This wasn't a discussion. This was me reclaiming my life. Mike parked and turned to me, ready. I nodded. Let's do this. We headed up, and as soon as I unlocked the door and stepped inside, I knew she had been waiting. She was sitting on the couch, legs crossed, dressed in the same silky robe she always wore when she was trying to look casual, but it was calculated. She looked up at me, and the moment her eyes flickered to Mike standing beside me, her expression shifted. You brought back up, she scoffed. Really, I didn't rise to the bait. I'm here to get my stuff, I said, simply, my voice calm. She stood up slowly, arms crossing over her chest. So that's it? Yes, her lips pressed together, her jaw tightening. I don't understand why you're doing this. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. You don't understand. I met her gaze. You flirted with another man on our anniversary. You laughed in my face when I called you out on it, and then you tried to make me the bad guy for walking away. She rolled her eyes. It was just harmless fun. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Mike let out a short laugh from beside me. Wow, she really is shameless. She shot him a glare. This is none of your business. Oh, I think it is. He said, see, I actually give a damn about him, unlike you. She turned back to me, her eyes narrowing. You were really just going to throw away 10 years over this. I met her gaze without flinching. You threw it away first. She took a step toward me, her expression shifting softer, almost sad. Come on, babe. You don't really want to do this. We can fix this. I stared at her and I realized something. She wasn't sorry. She was scared, not of losing me, but of losing control. She had assumed I would always be there, that no matter what she did, I would stay. And now, faced with the reality that she had finally pushed too far, she was scrambling. I took a slow breath. No, we can't. Her eyes darkened. So that's it. You're just done. I nodded. I'm done. I walked past her, heading for the bedroom to grab my things, and then I heard her whisper just low enough that she thought I wouldn't. Catch it. You'll regret this. I froze for half a second. Then I turned my head slightly, just enough to see her standing there, arms still crossed, her expression unreadable. Maybe I would have once, but not anymore. I just shook my head and kept walking. I didn't respond to her whispered threat. I didn't need to words, didn't mean anything anymore. Not from her. I had spent too many years believing in them, trusting them, only to find out they were nothing but empty syllables. Instead, I kept walking, heading straight to the bedroom. I heard Mike scoff behind me, but he didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He knew as well as I did that anything she said now was just another attempt to manipulate me to keep me from walking out the door. I started packing clothes first. The things I actually needed, my hands moved fast. Throwing shirts, jeans, shoes into a suitcase without bothering to fold them. I didn't want to spend a second longer in this place than I had to. Mike leaned against the doorframe watching. "Me, you good, yeah?" I muttered, zipping up the suitcase, almost done. He nodded but didn't move. I could tell he was keeping an eye on the living room, making sure she didn't try anything. I grabbed my laptop, a few personal items, then paused when I saw something sitting on the nightstand. The letter, the one I had given her at the restaurant, the one she had never even bothered to open. It was still there, unread, untouched. I stared at it for a moment, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Not sadness, not anger, just acceptance. This was who she was, and I was finally seeing it clearly. I picked up the letter, turned it over in my hands, and then, without a second thought, I ripped it in half. Then I ripped it again and again until it was nothing but shredded paper, meaningless scraps that matched whatever love I had left for her. I tossed the pieces into the trash. Mike smirked. Damn, that was symbolic. I huffed out a short laugh. Yeah, guess it was. I grabbed my suitcase, slung my bag over my shoulder, and turned to leave. But the moment I stepped out of the bedroom, she was standing there. She had changed tactics. Her arms were crossed over her stomach. Now her eyes glistening not with anger but with unshed tears. The same woman who had scoffed at me the night before, who had rolled her eyes and called me paranoid, was now trying to look vulnerable. "Are you really going to do this?" she asked softly. I didn't answer. She took a step closer, tilting her head, her voice barely above a whisper. "We've been through so much, baby, we don't have to end like this." I could feel my tin beside me like he was ready to drag me out if I hesitated, but I didn't. I met her gaze. We ended a long time ago. Her eyes flashed just for a second, just enough to show the anger beneath the act. The moment she realized I wasn't going to fall for her games, the mask slipped. "You're going to regret this." She spat, her voice sharp again, her tears gone as quickly as they came. I didn't say anything. I just walked past her. Mike followed me, making sure she didn't try anything. As we stepped out the door, the second I crossed the threshold, it felt like a weight had been lifted from my chest. I was free. I didn't look back. Not when I reached my car. Not when I drove away. Not when I turned my phone back on an hour later and saw the flood of missed calls and texts from her, all swinging between desperate and furious. I blocked her number then for the first time in years. I exhaled, and it actually felt good. The drive away from that apartment felt surreal, like I was escaping from a life I had been trapped in for far too long. I kept expecting some wave of regret to hit me, some lingering doubt to creep into my mind, but it never came. Instead, with every mile that passed, I felt lighter, like I'd been carrying an invisible weight on my back for years, and only now did I realize just how heavy it had been. Mike was silent beside me for most of the ride, only speaking when we stopped at a red light. "So what?" Now I exhaled, gripping the steering wheel. "Now I get a lawyer, I file, I move on." Mike nodded, approvingly. Good answer. But then he hesitated. "You think she's going to make this easy for you?" I scoffed. Hell no. I knew her. She wasn't the type to let go without a fight. She would try everything, playing the victim, making me out to be the villain, twisting the story to anyone who would listen. She might even try to take things from me just out of spite. But the thing was, I didn't care. Let her talk, let her scream, let her cry. I wasn't staying in a marriage where I was disrespected, lied to, treated like an option instead of a partner. Mike smirked. "You sure you don't want to get some payback first?" I gave him a sideways look. "What are you suggesting?" He shrugged. "I don't know. Something you can't tell me. You don't want to make her feel what you felt for a second." I actually thought about it. The temptation was there, buried deep inside the idea of showing her what real betrayal felt like, the idea of making her regret taking me for granted. But then I shook my head. "Nah, she's not worth it." Mike grinned. "Damn, you're a better man than me." I laughed. "No, I just know the best revenge is moving on and letting her watch, and that was the truth." The moment I realized she had lost her grip on me, she became nothing more than a chapter in my life that I was closing for good. She had expected me to come crawling back to beg, to be the same guy I had been for the past 10 years, the guy who tolerated her coldness, who excused the late nights, who believed every lie because he didn't want to face the truth. But that guy was gone, and she was never getting him back. By the time I dropped Mike off and got to my new place, a temporary setup, until I figured out my next move, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. I unpacked a few things, took a long shower, and finally checked my phone. More messages, some of them angry, some of them desperate. "I can't believe you're doing this. You're throwing everything away over nothing. Come back and talk to me. We can fix this. If you were done, then you owe me a real conversation." I stared at the last one for a long moment. Did I owe her that I thought about it, about all the ways this conversation could go about her, trying to spin things, trying to make me second-guess myself? And then I thought about the letter, how it had sat on the nightstand, unread. No, I didn't know her anything. I blocked her number, then I put my phone down, laid back, and closed my eyes. And for the first time in a long, long time, I actually slept the following morning. I woke up to the unfamiliar silence of my new space. No sound of her moving around in the kitchen, no passive-aggressive sighs, no cold glances, just peace. I stretched out on the bed, staring at the ceiling for a moment, before pulling myself up. It was strange how quickly I was adjusting to life without her, how easy it was to breathe. I checked my phone. Nothing. I'd expected more calls, more texts, more desperate attempts to reel me back in. But after blocking her number last night, it seemed like she had finally realized I wasn't playing her game anymore, or so I thought, because by noon I got a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. The second I did, I regretted it. "You really think blocking me is going to solve everything?" Her voice snapped through the speaker, sharp and bitter. "You can't just run away from this." I sighed, rubbing a hand down my face. "I'm not running. I'm done." She let out a humorless laugh. "You think it's that easy? You think you can just walk away?" "Yeah," I said flatly, "I do." She scoffed. "Unbelievable. After everything I've done for you." I cut her off. "Everything you've done for me? You mean like humiliating me on our anniversary, lying to my face, flirting with another guy right in front of me?" "Yeah. You really went above and beyond." There was a long pause, then her tone shifted softer, almost pitiful. "I didn't think you'd actually leave." I let out a breath. "That's the problem. You never thought I would. You thought I'd stay no matter what." More silence, then barely a whisper. "I didn't mean to hurt you." For a split second, I almost believed her. But then I remembered every time she had dismissed my feelings, every time she had treated me like I was overreacting, every time she had taken my love for granted. "Yeah," I said. "Then why aren't you apologizing? Why aren't you asking how to fix this? Why aren't you begging me to come back?" Her breath hitched because she wasn't sorry. She wasn't devastated that she lost me. She was devastated that I had stopped playing her game. I shook my head. You don't miss me, you miss control. She didn't deny it. She just whispered, you're making a mistake. I laughed, really laughed. No, for the first time in a long time, I'm finally getting it right. And then I hung up. I stared at my phone for a long moment before blocking the new number. Then I stood up, stretched, and grabbed my keys. I had a meeting with a divorce lawyer, and I wasn't going to be late. The drive to the lawyer's office felt like crossing an invisible line, a point of no return. But instead of fear or doubt, I felt something else: relief. No more second guessing, no more emotional whiplash, no more wondering if I was crazy for expecting the bare minimum of loyalty and respect for my own wife. When I walked into the office, the receptionist greeted me with a polite smile and led me to a sleek conference room. A few minutes later, a man in a sharp navy suit entered a leather folder tucked under his arm. Mr. Carter, he said, extending a hand. I'm David Sinclair. I'll be handling your case. I shook his hand, noting the firm grip. This was exactly the kind of guy I needed. No-nonsense professional, and if his reputation was accurate, brutal when it came to divorce cases. We sat down and he flipped open his folder. Tell me everything. So I did. I laid it all out. The years of emotional distance, the anniversary disaster, the lies, the way she had tried to manipulate me even after I walked out. David listened without interrupting, nodding, occasionally jotting down notes. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, studying me. Well, he said, the good news is you have every reason to walk away clean. I raised a brow, and the bad news, he sighed. She's not going to let you. I clenched my jaw. I knew it. David continued flipping through his notes. Based on what you've told me, she's the type who thrives on control. She's going to try everything, guilt manipulation, even legal loopholes to drag this out and make it as painful as possible for you. And if she's feeling particularly vindictive, she might even go after things she doesn't actually want just to make you suffer. I exhaled sharply. So what do? You let me handle it. He said simply, we go on the offensive file first. Be clear. Be firm. And don't give her room to play games. We don't negotiate unless we have to. We don't let her pull you back in the moment you waver. She'll sink her laws back in. I nodded slowly. I'm ready. He smirked. Good, Lieutenant, get started. By the time I walked out of that office, the divorce paperwork was already in motion. I checked my phone, more missed calls, more texts. I blocked them all. Then I got in my car, rolled down the windows, and just drove for the first time in a long, long time. I felt free filing for divorce, felt like taking the final step off a sinking ship. There was no turning back now, no second chances, no waiting for some magical change that would never come. And for the first time in years, I was okay with that. I spent the next few days focusing on myself, something I hadn't done in a long time. I went to the gym, started eating better, reconnected with old friends. It was strange how quickly I began to feel normal, like I had been living under a cloud for years, and only now was stepping back into the sunlight. But of course, she wasn't done with me yet. One evening, just as I was settling into the calm of my new reality, an email popped up in my inbox from her. I almost ignored it. I had blocked her number, deleted her from social media, removed every possible way for her to reach me, but she had found a way anyway. Curiosity got the better of me. I clicked subject. Let's talk before it's too late. I rolled my eyes too late for what her message was: long, filled with the same back and forth emotional manipulation I had come to expect from her. I don't understand why you're doing this. I never cheated on you, and you know that. Are you really going to throw everything away over one misunderstanding? We can fix this. You just need to talk to me. You owe me at least a conversation. Oh, that word made my blood boil. I didn't know her anything. I had given her 10 years of patience, of trust, of love, and she had thrown it all away. I closed the email without responding. She wasn't sorry. She was just losing control, and it was driving her crazy. That night, I slept better than I had in years. 2 days later, my lawyer called. She finally responded. David said, his tone dry in surprise. Sheck not happy. I smirked. Let me guess. She's fighting the divorce. Not outright, but stalling, playing the victim. Dragging her feet on, signing anything, classic tactics to make you reconsider. I sigh. Of course, David chuckled. She thinks she can wear you down, that if she makes this difficult enough, you'll just give up and come back not happening. I said firmly, good, he replied. Because I've seen guys crack under this kind of pressure. They let guilt, nostalgia, or plain exhaustion pull them back in. And trust me, if you cave now, she will never let you go. I exhaled slowly. This was the final battle. The moment I signed those papers, the moment she had no power left over me, that's when she would truly unravel, and I was ready for it. The next few weeks were a test of patience. She didn't outright refuse to sign the divorce papers, but she stalled at every turn. Delayed responses, requests to talk in person. Excuses about needing more time to process everything. I didn't take the bait. Every email, every attempt at dragging me back into the emotional whirlwind. I ignored it, let my lawyer handle it, and every time I refused to engage, her tactics escalated. First, she tried guilt. I can't believe you're doing this to us. Don't you remember the good times? You were throwing away 10 years over nothing. Then she switched to anger. Fine. If you want to be in about this, I'll fight you for everything you're going to. Regret treating me like this. You think you can just leave? I'll make sure this isn't easy for you. And then when that didn't work, she went nuclear. I woke up one morning to dozens of missed calls. My email was flooded. My social media, what little I still had, was tagged in cryptic posts about betrayal and not knowing what you had until it was gone. And then came the friends. Mutual friends started reaching out. People I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly popping up with concerned messages. Hey man, just heard about the divorce. What happened? She says, you're abandoning her after everything she did for you. That's true. I don't want to take sides. But dude, she's really hurting. She was spinning a story, painting herself as the heartbroken wife, making it seem like I had blindsided her, like I was some cold, unfeeling monster who had suddenly walked away from a perfectly good marriage. I didn't respond. I let them talk, let them wonder, let them take whatever side they wanted because I was done explaining myself. Mike, on the other hand, wasn't so quiet. He sent me a screenshot of one of her dramatic posts with a simple message. This is really trying it. I laughed for the first time in days. Me let her Mike, you sure me? Yeah, let her scream into the void. I'm not playing her game anymore, and that's what I did. I stopped engaging, stopped reacting. She wanted a war, but I refused to fight, and that's when she finally snapped. A week later, my lawyer called with news. She signed the papers. I exhaled, relief washing over me finally. Yeah, he said, but there's something else. I frowned. What he sighed. She added a note before she signed, just one sentence. I braced myself. What did it say? David cleared his throat, reading it aloud. You may have left me, but you'll never be free of me. I felt the chill crawl down my spine. David chuckled dry. I've seen bitter ex-wives before, but damn, she really doesn't like losing. I shook my head, smirking. She lost the moment I walked away, and I meant it no matter what she did next. No matter how she tried to make herself a permanent stain on my life, she couldn't change one simple fact. I was free. The moment I saw the finalized divorce papers in my hands, something inside me shifted. It was over, really over. No more fights, no more emotional manipulation, no more walking on eggshells, wondering when the next wave of coldness or indifference would hit me. I was free. I let out a long breath when I hadn't realized I'd been holding for months, maybe years. The weight of 10 years of a one-sided marriage finally lifted from my chest. Mike and I went out that night not to celebrate, but just to mark the end of an era. We sat at a bar, drinks in hand, the quiet hum of conversation around us. He smirked over his beer. So how's it feel to be a free man? I took a sip, letting the question settle. It feels right, and it did no regrets. No second thoughts. Just a calm, steady certainty that I had made the best decision of my life. Mike raised his glass to never settling for less again. I clinked my glass against his, a small grin forming to that I knew my ex wasn't done. She might still try to insert herself into my life, try to remind me that she was once my everything, but that's a thing she wasn't anymore. She was just a chapter, a lesson, a warning of what happens when you give your love to someone who never truly deserved it. And now I was ready for what came next. Because for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't looking back. This was one of the hardest experiences of my life, but now I realize sometimes losing someone is the greatest freedom. I'm no longer stuck in a relationship that drained me emotionally. I've learned my worth, and I will never again let anyone manipulate me or make me feel like I'm not enough. Life moves forward, and so do I. The best thing I ever did was choose myself.